And APB, American Protection Bureau, voted #1 best on Long Island for all your security needs. Call 631-390-9050. That's 631-390-9050. APB.
You need a body shop? You need engine repair? Auto Excellence, Collision Specialists, 631-261-6420. That's 631-261-6420. Auto Excellence. Jimmy, I gotta take a dump.
What?
No, I mean I need a dumpster.
Well, for all those needs, you need to call Big V Dumpster Rental, Long Island, New York, 631-900-DUMP. Elm Logistics, for all your logistic needs, call 631-299-3595. That's 631-299-3595. Elm Global Logistics, pride, performance, and partnerships. The Monty and the Pharaoh Show is brought to you by...
Because wine is your second favorite four-letter word. California wine, New York attitude. Good fucking wine.
Yeah.
Tired of that same old breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Same old tasting scrambled eggs, burger, that dinner steak, ribs, or pork chops? Why not add a little bit of spice or just a touch of heat to make the difference? Change that scrambled egg with a little bit of Johnny Fabulous's John Cena Sr.'s $1 Million Jalapeno Hot Sauce. Great on burgers, steaks, chops, and those barbecued ribs.
And Nitro's Garage for all your automotive needs. Call 646-675-2349. That's 646-675-2349. For all your automotive needs, Nitro's Garage. Ask for Jack.
Do you treat your dog as part of the family? Well, so do we. So why not celebrate your pup's birthday with the ultimate party box? Check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Party Pup Info, and let us make your pup's party or any celebration perfection.
M&J Video Games and Collectibles. Sport and non-sport cards, wrestling items, autographed items. We buy, sell, and trade. M&J Video Games and Collectibles, located at 1049 Queen Street, Southington, Connecticut. Call us at 1-860-479-9223 or 860-93-GAMES. M&J Video Games and Collectibles.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Wrestling Remembered. I'm your host, moderator, Joe Whataday Lowry. And, of course, as always, we are joined by my esteemed colleagues from Thursday Night to 30. Let's welcome in first the player, Benny Scala. Welcome to the show, Benny. There he is. He's putting on the guns.
And your guns, baby. Look at him.
I'm main your guns. You're the same your guns. But I did want to say I am the new reigning champion of the 30, now a five-time champion. And I am also the resident poet laureate of the Monty and the Pharaoh channel. I just want to do a quick public service announcement and say, don't be a jabroni, drink Peroni.
There you go. That's good. All right. Good product placement there. Got to love it. And, of course, we have the president of Thursday Night, the incomparable Phil DeCesare. Phil, welcome.
Thanks, Joe. Wrestling fans around the corner and around the world, let's get ready to rumble.
There you go, folks. And this week we're talking Hulkamania. We're going to be talking about the birth of Hulkamania, January 23rd, 1984, a date that will live in the wrestling halls forever. First up, guys, let me know your thoughts. Where were you when Hulk? Let's kind of take it back a few months first. Where were you when Hulk Hogan returned to WWF? When Bob Backlund was facing the Samoans and he had some trouble, and all of a sudden Hulk Hogan came out of the curtain and helped everything out. And of course, it was a melee. What are your thoughts there, Betty? You go ahead first. Where were you when this all took place?
Well, I remember that. I remember. I think it might have been Tiger Chung Lee and Mr. Fuji. Hogan had arrived back in the WWF on December 27th, actually, which was the day after Backlund lost the title.
Right.
And he wrestled in St. Louis against some jabroni named, I don't know, Johnny 5-0. No, Bill Dixon.
The incomparable
Bill Dixon lost. Yeah, Hulk squashed him in 3 minutes and didn't really have a lot of matches. Let's see. He had a TV taping that was with Backlund. They defeated Mr. Fuji and Tiger Chung Lee, and only had one other match before the January 23rd match with the Sheik. So it was pretty quick. He had been in Japan before that, and before that, of course, he was with the AWA.
Yeah, Phil, let's talk about that. AWA, he was big over there. He had that. I'm going to show a picture now. He had a picture there. Let me pull it up. Yeah.
Vern looking like Joe Garagiola, didn't he?
Right there.
He does. That really does.
Looking like they were all happy and all that stuff. And then the big situation happened with, he supposedly won the world title, the AWA world title. Things were going really good for him. But, of course, that decision was reversed. And then we have this. Yeah. The big FU and all that stuff. So, I know we started with the Backlund thing, but we got to go back to how this whole thing originated with Hulkamania.
Yeah.
He was with the AWA, and then he had a falling out. Let's go back a few more years. He was with the WWF. He had a falling out with Vince Sr. because he wanted to film Rocky III at the time.
Yep.
And Vince Sr. said no. Now, we got to remember now, Vince Jr. did not buy the company just yet.
Right.
But when he went over to film the movie with Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah.
I mean.
You have to remember, Vince Sr. didn't really want to mix wrestling with anything else. Before this Rocky 3 opportunity came about, of course, we remember Andy Kaufman wanted to do business in the Northeast, but Vince McMahon didn't want to do that then either. So, it was nothing against Hogan personally, but it was just Vince Sr.'s view of the business. He didn't see it mixing with anything else. Wanted to keep it pure, and thus refused Hogan.
Yep. So, let's, moving along, the big photo, that infamous photo that graced every pro wrestling magazine out there.
Yeah.
Here's Hulk Hogan, virtually left the AWA, was in Japan for a while. Nobody knew what was going on. All of a sudden, here he is with Sylvester Stallone and, doing the deal here, big television, Rocky III grossed probably one of the most money in that year. And he had a significant role in this. He wasn't just a one-off. He had a major role in this movie where it just took him. He was almost like he was already mainstream. He was already Hollywood at the time before he got back to the WWF.
Stallone had quite a respect for wrestling and wrestlers in particular, and an affinity towards them. And we know he had a great relationship with Terry Funk going back several years, and several other wrestlers too. And he saw Hogan just much like we did for the first time on WWF TV. Right. And he said, I have to have this guy. And ultimately he got that guy. And actually during the filming of the movie, Sly basically said to Hogan, I want you to lay it in. In fact, Hogan laid it in so hard with the forearm across the back, Stallone collapsed in a heap on the mat and knocked himself out. So, sending a little message there, I think, was Hogan, and it really added to the realism, I think. Stallone, I think, has been known for that too. He's not afraid to take a shot or two. Sure. And I really do think that it helps, particularly his art, that much more.
Definitely. A lot of this, stemmed from Vince Sr., the fallout. Rocky III appearance. Vince buys the WWF $1 million and all that stuff. And, the change happens. The incomparable Iron Sheik becomes the world champion by defeating Bob Backlund. Let's talk about this win real quick, because it is obviously imperative to Hulkamania. The Iron Sheik winning the title on, what was it, the day after Christmas, December 26th.
26th, well, yes, sir.
Yeah, I know Monty mentioned last night that the newspaper printed the Madison Square Garden results, and he saw that. But nobody knew about it until the following Saturday, when it was literally a Tuesday or a Wednesday that Sheik won it. And they had to go ahead and, back then, this is, it's not modern like it is now, where you can just throw in the clip. This was like breaking news, right, Benny? This was like breaking news on that Saturday.
Big time news.
Yep. So, I mean, my phone rang off the hook constantly. Oh, my God, Bob Backlund, 5-year champion. Oh, my God, what's going on? We were in a whirlwind there. So, you got the Iron Sheik coming back. And all of a sudden, Hulk Hogan comes back. Here it is right here. He's coming back. Backlund's got him. They do this interview with Mean Gene. And that was basically, I wouldn't say a passing of the torch, so to speak. But, Backlund's speech there said that Hulk Hogan has changed his ways, because we all know he was a bad guy when he left WWF years prior.
Yeah, they had to explain that.
Yeah, and Backlund was there. He's changed his way. Like, he had to tell the crowd that, but I don't think it mattered, because when he came through the curtain,
he got the pop.
He got the pop. The ring barriers were pushed. People wanted to, touch him and see him and all that stuff. That to me, that there was a whirlwind there. That was like 2 or 3 weeks of must-see championship wrestling.
Yeah.
Channel 56.
That picture you just showed, Joe, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. There it is.
Yeah.
Look at that. Bob Backlund is wearing an amateur singlet, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. He just pulled that out of the dustbin a little while ago. He wasn't wearing that. And I think he was trying to send a message maybe right there to Hogan, too, with respect to.
Yep.
Backlund appreciates, amateur athletes, wrestlers in particular. And, I can't help but think that was not just a little subtle jab or just a little sign of something, because he didn't wear the singlet really that much.
No, only at the very end. No.
Yeah.
Correct.
And you notice that Hogan is wearing the T-shirt. Remember the T-shirts back in the day, guys? You could go down to the Army Navy surplus store and get the letters printed on or pressed onto the shirt,
They do it in the back of the record shops. I remember that.
Exactly. Exactly. Yep. Well, one of the reasons Hogan came back is because Vern Gagne wanted to get a cut of his T-shirt sales,
Oh, yes, right.
And Hogan didn't want any part of that, too. He wanted part of the T-shirt sales, part of the money from Japan, and Hulkster would have none of that. So
wasn't it said somewhere that Linda Hogan was actually selling Hulkamania T-shirts out of her trunk at certain places in AWA? And I think Vern Gagne saw that as a threat, because he wanted a piece. There is a story. I want to say it's almost in Bill Apter's book that's mentioned, where Linda Hogan was.
Yes, you're right. I do recall reading that too.
Hulkamania, because if you remember the old magazines, even I wish I brought that up, because I totally forgot about that. By the way, the chat is hopping tonight, so we got to give a shout out to everybody in the chat.
Yeah.
Reading the PWI magazines, I think Hulk Hogan was in like ads saying order the Hulkamania shirt. He was doing this or something. He had a red Hulkamania shirt on.
He might have, yeah.
It just said it in the normal font. It wasn't the flashy Hulkamania that we see nowadays.
I know he modeled the PWI, the Pro Wrestling Illustrated shirt too.
Yep, but
maybe they had a little exchange thing going on. But but T-shirts, as we know now, huge business, and this was really the start of merchandising. He
was definitely ahead of it all. That is for sure. But I remember reading that Linda was actually selling it out of the back of the car. And
I believe it.
Go ahead, Benny.
Backlund there with the singlet. But that was also one of the reasons why Vern didn't want to put the belt on Hogan, was because, the AWA for years and years, who were the champions? You had Vern Gagne, you had Nick Bockwinkel. Even Mad Dog Vachon, was actually an Olympic wrestler.
Yes, he was. Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, you had like all these guys who could wrestle. Even back in the day, Bill Miller. Bill Miller was a great amateur wrestler. But he wrestled there as Mr. M.
Going back to the singlet angle with Bob Backlund, I know it was relatively new. It was a couple of months in the making.
Didn't Backlund towards the end of his reign, and it's been so long now, but I thought he got the crew cut. He kind of lost a lot of his physique. He lost some of his definition, and he started wearing the singlet. It almost felt like he knew he was going to be, going.
That's where I was heading with that. I think he did that as knowing that this all just didn't come together within a couple of hours. Obviously, things like this are planned out. So he knew the end was coming. So that, going back to the original NCAA Bob Backlund, as we know, with the singlet and all that, could have been just an FU to Vince. Well, I'm going to do this for the next 3 months. And, when I lose, because I thought it was weird. And going back, Phil, you went to the Boston Garden. Backlund's run was weird because I remember some snooker matches against Jimmy Superfly Snooker.
Yeah.
Backlund was booed and Snooker was cheered.
Yeah, you're right. Snooker was kind of a notable exception in that regard. He was
right. Yes. Yep.
He was a fan favorite right from the beginning,
Right. They should never have billed him as the crazy Superfly.
Yeah.
He should have just came in, because the thing with Captain Lou, which was a great angle, the Captain Lou Ray Stevens angle.
Oh, that was a great angle.
Yeah, that was shocking. Buddy Rogers, the Rogers corner and all that stuff. He came in. But I remember, I want to say before the Hogan thing, Backlund's last few title defenses at the Garden, which were your usual ho-hum George Steele in the summer. I think he finished up a run with Morocco, things like that. But at the Garden, at the Boston Garden, at least, I don't know about Madison Square Garden, Benny, he was booed. People didn't like him. They thought he was boring every time he wrestled. I mean, he had a sleeper match with Morocco for 60 minutes. And they sat in the middle of the ring. He had his arms wrapped around Morocco for like 20 minutes, and it was just plain boring. And he lost the crowd and everything. And I think Vince caught on to that. What do you guys think?
It was this time. Geez, the guy he would have been in February, would have been 6 years. That's a long time.
Yeah,
it was time. It was time to change.
Yeah, the sport was changing. You could see it. I think some of the storylines were getting, the superstar Billy Graham storyline ripping up the title. That was like, oh my God, what did he do that for? That was kind of like the beginning of the end when you think about it. He ripped up the title, and when he got the green belt, they said the green belt was cursed because that's when he lost it. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's when he lost it. And that belt didn't last very long. I think that lasted, 2 months? Hogan wore that.
Yeah.
But isn't it funny how wrestling, they never waste anything? So when Backlund turned heel, 10 years later?
Yeah.
They brought back Arnold Skull and then Backlund said, well, I never lost the title. Arnold, and then he turned on Arnold. It's like they never waste anything.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I noticed when Hogan came back on that weekend with Bob Backlund and everything changed. You already had Mean Gene already planted in. So the announcership was changing. It wasn't like Pat Patterson with Vince McMahon, or things started to change. Jesse the Body came aboard.
He raided the AWA, not just with Hogan. You got Jesse, you got Adonis, you got Mean Gene.
Yep.
David Schultz.
Yeah.
A whole bunch of guys.
Yep. The Adrian Adonis thing, the East-West Connection came a couple of years prior. But then they went singles, and obviously, that turned into a big deal. And we all know what happened to Adonis, and Jesse obviously went to the announcer's booth. But things were changing rapidly, though. That's what I'm trying to get at. When Hogan won the title, right here, right there, the crowd goes nuts. We have all the photos. Andre, congratulations. It's a huge thing. Hulkamania was born. I posted this on my Facebook the other day, January 23rd. Just look at him going down the aisle with the belt. You never saw that really with Backlund towards the end, or anybody. These fans wanted to be a part of Hulk Hogan and, all that good stuff. So what do you guys think about that? Was it fast and furious back then, all the changes?
I think so. I mean, like you say, like you guys say, the AWA was raided. That was that was really the first territory we recall with this mass exodus or this mass influx in.
Right.
Back not so long ago, you might get one new guy every maybe 6 months, and it really, and we as fans were allowed to really have the time to get to know this new star, to really focus on them and appreciate them. But we weren't used to that speed of all these new people coming in too. So from a fan perspective, it took a little adjustment, I think, too.
There was a lot of just a lot of changes every week. I thought, like, it was just, but even when Hogan appeared on. I'm trying to remember. Did they announce Hogan when he won the title? But when did he first appear on Championship Wrestling as the champion? Does anybody remember that? Like, I don't know.
It wasn't for a while because he and I was going to mention this, and I didn't even notice until I did a little bit of research today. But he won the title on the 23rd.
Yep.
By the 27th, he was in Japan again.
Yeah.
And he wrestled against in a tag team match against Tatsumi Fujinami and Inoki.
Yep.
And guess who his partner was?
Who was it? Andre?
No.
Who was it?
You never guess.
Mike
Sharp. Mike Sharp.
Mike Sharp? Wow.
Canada's greatest athlete. Yes, sir.
Yeah, with the black thing. Oh, I remember that. We were just talking about that the other day, Mike Sharp.
Wow.
But he didn't get back.
He was a mainstay for WWE for a while. He was like that, just above the mid card, but not main event, because he always filled in for a Backlund match. He was always that guy. I don't know, Phil, if you remember at the Boston Garden. Oh, so and so can't appear, and Iron Mike Sharp would take the place.
Yeah,
and it was like, what's going on? Like, okay, Mike Sharp's here, but he was always that guy. He was always around. Let's put it that way. He was just always around. Part of a storyline. I know they tried to make a storyline with him and Backlund. And it was the worst storyline. It's like, they just didn't match well together. They tried to push that on us, and that didn't work for me. But
it's too bad. They're both fitness fanatics and pretty fastidious in general. And I think they actually had a lot in common.
Yeah, J.A. Will says Iron Mike Sharp was the cleanest wrestler.
Absolutely.
So
you should have done soap commercials, if they marketed him, man.
So real quickly, I had to do some research on my own. Now, March 17th, 1984, Boston Garden was the first title defense Hogan had at the Boston Garden. I do believe he wrestled the month before, or somebody substituted for Backlund, because here's how it went. Hogan won the title, but Backlund lost the title in December. Then I posted on my Facebook last week on Saturday Night Wrestling Remembers. They had the one and only rematch. Backlund and Sheik was at the Boston Garden. And that was January, I want to say the second week of January. And it was January 11th or 12th. It was actually 9 days later that Hogan won the title. So Hogan won the title late January. Benny, you said he went to Japan. He did his run there, and he comes back in February.
Right.
And looking at the, I want to say that when I look back on it, Hogan was a substitute for somebody as the champion, though, but it wasn't Backlund. It was weird. So it wasn't a title. It wasn't a title defense. Something happened. I forget what it was. But nonetheless, come along March 17th, ironically, on St. Paddy's Day, I found these pictures that I was there and I took. So they're kind of blurry. I tried to clean them up, but this is March 17th, 1984. This is Hulk Hogan's first title defense at the Boston Garden against Dr. D, David Schultz.
Oh, wow.
As you can see, these are photos that I've had. So you could just see, I'm taking pictures here. Look, I don't know if you can see the bottom right where the Hulkamania is. He's doing his strut.
Yeah.
Look at the kids popping up on the shoulders to get a look at this guy.
Look at that flying elbow.
You got to remember now, the last few months at the Garden were I went to the rematch with the Sheik and Backlund. The crowd was not into it. The crowd was kind of dying out at that time. And then all of a sudden, Hulkamania comes. And look at the top picture where he's ripping his shirt off. Look at the crowd. They're standing. Look at him coming into the ring, top left corner. Dr. D. David Schultz is like, wow, look at this reaction. Like you could just see the surprise in all this. That to me is, historic in itself. Hogan's first appearance at the Garden. I don't even know if he appeared at the Boston Garden back in 79, 80 when he had his run with Andre and all that. I'm not sure. I wasn't a fan then. I became a fan in 81.
He came, Joe, they came to Worcester too. They performed at the auditorium. They absolutely did.
Not the old Centrum or whatever it was.
No, before the Centrum even was the Worcester Memorial Auditorium, a 3,000 seat kind of theater. It was really a great place to see wrestling. Yeah. So they made a few shows there too. But yeah, those are great pictures, man. And you know what? There's nothing like that Hogan pop, and I'm sure you heard it too.
Yep. I'm going to look up real quick. History of WWE has a great website. Hold on one second. Bear with me, everybody. I'm just trying to find something here.
They might have met in Fitchburg too, and you might actually get some validation for that. They might have met. The circuit would be like Fitchburg and Worcester, and then maybe Boston.
Yep.
The smaller clubs, and then they'd hit the big one.
When was his feud? Okay, so July 12th, 1980, Hulk Hogan was there. He defeated Gorilla Monsoon. That's the first appearance I see with him in the WWF as a bad guy.
That's when he's a heel,
place. That was in, let me see, hold on.
Jersey or Pennsylvania?
Nope, this is Boston Garden, actually.
Oh, Boston, okay.
July 12th, 1980, crowd was 12,310. Hogan defeated Gorilla Monsoon in 6.5 minutes. Obviously a quick match.
Yeah.
Now check this out. Boston Garden, August 16th, 1980. Andre the Giant defeated Hulk Hogan in 15 minutes and 30 seconds. Doesn't say if it's a pinfall or a disqualification. It just gives you the results. Then we go a month later. Hulk Hogan defeated Pat Patterson via countout. So he was very active in 1980 with the WWF coming to Boston and all that stuff. And then I'm looking here, I'm going through the rest of 1980, and I don't see him at all. So I'm not sure where he went, if this is when he went back to the AWA.
I think he went to Japan first, and then he joined the AWA.
Okay, so outside of those springtime appearances at the Boston Garden, he disappeared. He was never on the card again. So he was done there. Nothing. And then we go to 81, and he's not even around in 81.
No, he's in the AWA at that point.
So at that time. So if you guys get a chance, that site is called History of the WWE. And when you click on it, it has every single television taping from everything from World Class to WWE to all that stuff. And they even go to arena results. They have all the arenas. I can tell you right now what they have.
Okay.
Baltimore Civic Center, Greensboro, Madison Square Garden, Boston Garden, Atlanta Omni, Philadelphia Spectrum, Nassau Coliseum, Capitol Center, Meadowlands, Rosemont Horizon, Skydome, Philly Civic Center, and other arenas. And all of these go from 60s all the way to 2010s.
Yeah.
So this is a really intricate site. It's pretty cool. It's not just WW. They have, it's Jim Crockett, WCW, ECW, TNA, Ring of Honor, Smoky Mountain, and they have all the results, everything. And that's when I kind of find out, if I have a memory blank from when I went in 1981, thinking it was 1 month, I go back to this site and I'm like, okay, I know where I was then, and all that stuff. So it's a cool site. Let's check out some of the chat, guys. Let's see what's going on here.
Yeah, what's going on there? I gotta go
Maria's in the house. The player Beth Harper's here. Welcome, everybody.
Playmate.
Monty and the Pharaoh. I mentioned that before the show. Slim Jim pulled out of the Royal Rumble. That's breaking news. Long time advertisement of WWE. They pulled out. They will not be at the Rumble. Slim Jim, obviously. I think LA Knight took over Randy Macho Man's spot, so to speak.
Very appropriate that a Slim Jim would pull out.
Yep. Jay Will, Hogan needs to smell the roses like Belichick and many others. He doesn't want to let it go. Rumor had it today he's Royal Rumble participant number 30. Don't know how he's going to get to the ring, but that remains to be seen.
No.
Maria Davis, Greg Gagne to me just looked weird. He had no wrestling body, not too great of a seller. He was Vern's son. That's basically what he was, right, Phil? Benny?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, he had the body of a used car salesman, but he could wrestle. I mean, he was very undersized, though.
What is he? The High Flyers with
him and Brunzell. Yeah, they were a very good tag team.
And Brunzell pretty much carried him. I thought that was weird. Some of these guys growing up didn't look, very rare. But you had a guy like Greg Gagne, like, why is he in the ring? Even a better example of that is a young Barry Windham. He was very, very skinny when he first appeared.
Him and Kendall Windham.
Kendall as well was skinny. Obviously, they bulked up later on, but Kendall still had that skinny physique. The only thing Kendall had going for him, he was tall.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was good. Who else we got here? L Dirtbag's in the house. Greg Gagne is literally like your neighbor wrestling. He always looked odd to me. So a lot of non-Vern Gagne.
A lot of Gagne hate in the room.
Even as a 12-year-old, I was scratching my head at the notion that Greg Gagne weighed 218 pounds. It just didn't make sense to me,
Yeah, wasn't there like a weight limit back then? Didn't you have to be a certain weight to be classified as a pro wrestler? I thought, it was like over 220, maybe 215 or something.
Yeah, 220 to 230 generally was the cutoff and go towards heavyweight. But in reality, it was even $180, $170.
That's what
shoes on. He was, I'd say like $175.
Yeah,
shoes on and wet clothes.
Right.
Maria Davis, I think all the bumps thrown into the turnbuckle and Hogan's body has really been beaten up bad. Yeah. 30. How many years did he wrestle? God, 1979, 80 to what?
2077.
77 was his start. Yeah.
Yeah. Terry Belair or whatever. What was he called? He had a nickname. Didn't he have a nickname? He came in as
Sterling Golden.
Sterling Golden. That's right.
Terry Boulder too.
Terry Boulder.
Yeah. And Brutus was Dizzy Boulder, I think.
Now,
Dizzy Boulder, Dizzy Hogan too. Yeah.
And Hogan started out as a bouncer, right, at a bar. Briscoes and all them went there. And didn't he have a meeting with somebody?
More of a bass player, I think. He was a musician.
Yeah, he was a musician as well. Yeah, he was a musician. I forgot about that. Yeah, the guitar. Yeah. And that was in the wrestling magazines too. Like even before he was with the WWF, like they were doing these spotlights on him. Like they knew something was coming down the pike. You know what I mean? They knew something was coming. So let's start. Because folks, we all know wrestling magazines was the internet back then for us. So when you got these magazines, you kind of knew what was going on throughout the country in the world of professional wrestling, right? I mean, am I wrong?
No, they were the window into the wrestling world once upon a time. Granted, it was a delayed window, but it was the best we had, and
it's what we
I lived for them, man,
very eagerly.
And it's J.A. Will says Bob Backlund wore the singlet when he was in Georgia Championship Wrestling in the mid-'70s.
He would know. J.A. Will was watching back then, too.
That's good.
And he had something else of interest, too.
L Dirtbag. This was before ESPN carried AWA. My first exposure to Hulk Hogan was Rocky III and saw him in the first wrestle with the birth of Rock and Wrestling on MTV. Before that, I only had Portland Wrestling. That's right. So he's up there. Speaking of the Rock and Wrestling connection, I mean, it all started, right? Hulkamania is born. Things are flying out the window. And next thing you know, boom, they're hooked up with MTV and all this stuff. The war to settle the score. Things are changing rapidly again as, believe it or not, Captain Lou Albano turns good. A longtime managerial heel turns good. Like things were changing. Like it was... fill in the blanks, guys.
Let me tell you, fate really interceded here, I will say. It's because both Captain Lou and Cyndi Lauper were on a flight, I think, to Puerto Rico, perhaps, or from Puerto Rico. Yeah. They happened to meet each other.
Right.
Cyndi was a fan, anyway, all her life. And she obviously, who wouldn't recognize Captain Lou anyway,
Right.
And they're both New Yorkers too, which doesn't hurt. I think Queens, New York was something they had in common. Right. And anyway, that's really where the Rock Wrestling connection was forged. And, it was born on an airplane. And I think it was a trip to Puerto Rico, if I'm not mistaken. And it just went from there. So, as much as we like to say that all these geniuses were at work, creating this meeting of two forces,
right.
It might have been a little happenstance. I mean, I would call it fate, the guided hand of the Lord, maybe bringing these two forces together. And then it went from there,
There are no coincidences, right?
No. Who put this chocolate in my peanut butter, and it's like, yeah. And all of a sudden the Reese's peanut butter cup is born.
I still like when they walk into the corner, the chocolate and the peanut butter, and they bump into each other. That's how it is.
You know, one of the greatest things, though, I thought was that for years and years as a young wrestling fan, I was, you kind of were shamed. You had your little clique of wrestling friends
Right.
that, and that you shared your love of wrestling with, but you couldn't really spread that around. Whereas, once Hogan came on the scene and you had the Rock and Wrestling connection, now it's mainstream. So now you can be proud to be a wrestling fan. And the other thing is, Phil can say yes or no, but I feel like there was a huge shift in emotion as a fan. I mean, when we watched, Bruno or Pedro or even Backlund, wrestle, there was like an anxiety and an anticipation,
right.
That, and it was a real, I guess a real fight feel kind of thing.
We had some dread. Yeah.
Right. Yep. And now with Hogan, it was more of an entertainment thing now.
Yeah, the crossover definitely happened when Hogan won the title. Obviously, it was in the cards. They knew when Vince bought the WWF, you knew things were going to change, and things started to change because literally when he bought the company from his dad, Backlund's days were numbered. Sheik won the title. I mean, the changes were fast and furious, like we said. Hogan, MTV, you talk about entertainment. There it is. WrestleMania 1 was huge. I know Billy Martin's probably missing from the photo and all that stuff, but who in their right mind would put wrestling in a category with Liberace, Cyndi Lauper, Muhammad Ali, Billy Martin, Mr. T? It's a who's who at the time of entertainment.
Yeah.
And Vince wanted to do one thing and one thing only, and that was to make wrestling mainstream. And the only way he could do that is and Hogan was the carrier of that, or the catalyst for that, is to put everybody either in the ring or somehow being involved with the WWF.
And these are the most colorful characters and their chosen endeavors, their chosen fields. I mean, when you think about it, Muhammad Ali,
I mean,
was he not the most colorful fighter of all time?
The greatest heavyweight champion, right?
Liberace in terms of musicians.
Yep. Cyndi Lauper, of course. I mean, they picked Wendy Richter. I didn't know who Wendy Richter was before this whole Rock and Wrestling war to settle the score was. Cyndi Lauper supposedly picked her. Obviously, she was a wrestler and she's been around. I never saw her before. I know there's pictures of her back in the day when she didn't look nothing like how she looked for the matches. Did anybody hear of Wendy Richter before this?
We might have heard of her, but didn't really remember, I think. You might have seen a picture or two in the magazines, but
I think Leilani Kai was more popular, or
Velvet McIntyre, maybe.
Judy Martin and the Jumping Bomb Angel.
Not a name like the ones you're mentioning right now. She didn't have that same name value. She's relatively unknown.
Yeah. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. She looked like the Hulk Hogan of women because she was kind of women wrestlers back then weren't that big.
She's very telegenic.
I'm talking height wise and all that stuff. I don't want to start, body shaming and all that stuff.
No.
What I'm trying to say is Wendy Richter fit the role perfectly. Let me put that picture back up. She was tall. She was big. I know she was taller than most people.
Yeah.
Most wrestlers they picked her and she ran with it. Then came the big hair, then came the music videos. She was in She Bop. All those ones, Captain Lou was in Girls Just Want to Have Fun and everything else. Then the other videos came out, Land of a Thousand Dances, The Goonies. That one, I forget the name. They're all at the gas station trying to get gas. It's a Cyndi Lauper song, and they're all in it. Nikolai Volkov. It almost looks like they went from one set from A Land of a Thousand Dances to the next set for Cyndi Lauper.
They probably did.
Yeah, if anybody in the chat remembers that would be
I'm
great.
trying to think of that, man. I don't know that one.
Maria Davis, Wendy Richter, I think she was from Texas.
Yes,
she was.
She had a green eye and a blue eye brown, but she thinks it was contacts. Well, maybe. I don't know if they had those back then like that. Did they? Colored contacts? That's something interesting.
And J.A. Will, same thing. I first saw Mr. T at that Tough Man contest.
Yeah, I think I saw him too, J.A. Will. Penny Banner was a nice-looking women's wrestler in the 70s.
Yes, she was. Very nice.
Vivian Michon. I think I have a topic for next week's show, women's wrestlers. That might be something to look at.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
I think, they picked Wendy Richter, and she was perfect for that situation. And that situation was, I think it was more on Cyndi Lauper, because when Wendy Richter defeated the fabulous Moolah, all eyes were on Cyndi Lauper.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She was there. She raised her hand and all that. And I looked at some of the videos today, and it really wasn't on Wendy Richter. It was all on Cyndi Lauper. So, I mean, I'm not saying that anybody could have filled that role, but obviously she filled the role and did the best she could. And as we move forward, Hogan starts appearing on everything. You see him everywhere. Grammy Awards with Joan Rivers, Regis Philbin. And then, of course, Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling on Saturday mornings. That was kind of neat. I didn't watch it. I think this is where the genre was shifting. They wanted to get the younger generation in on this, to look up to him and all that stuff. I'm sure. By the way, Bruce Butler, ESO, was on a little while ago, but for some reason had computer issues, so we lost him. I forgot to mention that at the beginning, but he's nowhere to be found. He, I guess his computer just blew up on him, like seriously went up. So
and it's a brand new computer, is what he told me.
It wasn't.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So
Bruce.
he was on. He's not. I don't think he's even on the chat. So
he's not. I don't see him.
So he lost all that. El Dirtbag, the Goonie song was more about wrestling than the movie.
How about J.A. Will? He said even Moolah used to be good looking.
Yeah, in 1957.
What was her name? What was her real name? It was
Lillian Ellison.
Yep.
Lillian Ellison. Yep. Mae Young. Her and Mae Young. What a tag team.
Yeah, she was attractive in during World War II.
Yeah, there's some good photos of them when they were younger. That's for sure.
She was something before electricity, I'll tell you.
I mean, $14 now. One way.
Maria Davis Wrestling was the star, I guess. That's what she put in. She put an emoji in there. All that stuff. Mildred.
I have a question for you. I have a question for you guys, though.
Yeah.
Because this is something I always want to find out people's opinions on. Two-sided question. One is if Vern had done the right thing and put the belt on Hogan,
right?
What do you think would have happened in the AWA? Do you think they would have went on, for a little while longer? Do you think Vince would have? I think Vince would have just bought him anyway. And number two, it had Hulk stayed in the AWA, do you think anybody could have done in early '84 what Hulk did?
Well, maybe they would have brought Nikita in to be a heel champion, maybe, and have Sergeant Slaughter or someone, come from the other side to compete. I don't know. I mean, I think he did that raw clay that Vince loves, and he can mold him into what he wants him to be. And Nikita certainly lived the gimmick, so he would have been great. And in that era, a Russian heel. Again, perfect. I think Nikita probably would have gotten the call. And
I think Snuka would have been great had he.
Absolutely.
Well, let's not forget he wasn't around at that time. He had some issues, personal issues, so he was out.
Right, but I'm saying had he kept his nose clean, literally, and stayed in shape, I think he would have been a great. Because when he turned babyface, I don't think there's anybody more popular than him.
Oh, no, you're right, absolutely. And the thing about the AWA, and I remember this before Hogan came in and got the title. There was this TV show, syndicated show. You guys probably have seen it in your markets.
Okay.
Around here, they called it Evening Magazine, but other places it was PM Magazine.
Don't forget, I lived in Boston just a couple of years
man.
ago.
Remember Robin and Marty were the
Robin
hosts,
and Marty.
remember?
Robin
yeah,
Young.
You remember
Robin
yes.
Young.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Barry Nolan too, right?
Barry Nolan was there too. Yeah. I can't remember Marty's last name, but that'll come to me. But anyway, they did a feature on the AWA, and they had a feature with Hogan and Hogan prepping before he went out to the ring. Eye of the Tiger, the whole deal.
I remember that.
And just the crowd, the way the crowd was, you knew then they had lightning in a bottle,
Right.
And the thing is, the AWA, a very appealing place to work, right? They worked maybe 4 days a week, if that. They took summers off, so. For many people, that would have been an ideal situation. With Hogan on the top of the card, all these large houses everywhere, they flew everywhere out there too. So I think it would have been an ideal place to work. It would have drawn a lot of talent, and it likely would have lasted a little while. But I think, let's remember Vern Gagne, when he was talking to Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty, and they were talking about, the Rockers. And the team was the Midnight Rockers originally.
Rockers. Yep.
And Vern said, aren't you worried that people are going to confuse you with, two people like in rocking chairs or old people? And they're like, no, Vern, we've got this, Vern was a little out of touch even then.
That's what I was saying. He was a little out of touch. And dementia is he died of dementia, complications of dementia.
Yeah.
You never know at this stage of the game where his mind was at. Getting back to if Hogan won the belt and all that stuff, my gut feeling is if they gave the title to Hogan, I don't think they had the ingenuity like Vince had to push Hogan worldwide, nationwide. I think Vern Gagne was such an old-timer, territorial guy that he thought if you put the belt on Hogan, that would secure his territory for however long they could maintain it before Vince went national. I think it overall would have just delayed Vince's takeover of everything. I honestly think that if Hogan did win the title and Vern Gagne gave to him, they wouldn't have that market. They wouldn't have that train to get Hogan nationwide. I don't think it was. They weren't even set up like that. They kind of were a small shop, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
they were still the show up, wrestle, you get paid, that type of thing. We'll see you tomorrow night in Minneapolis. We'll see you tomorrow.
It was a territory.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was a territory. And I think Vern Gagne wanted to keep it like that, almost like a nostalgia type thing. It may have lasted a couple more years before Vince finally found somebody else. But, as it goes, Vince and Hogan had that conversation. Hogan and Vern Gagne had a handshake agreement. Vince promised billions of dollars, notoriety. I don't think he would have got that in AWA. He might have covered the magazines and all that stuff for years, but he would not have gotten the exposure. I don't think we'd have the pictures of him and Joan Rivers, him with Cyndi Lauper, with all that on the.
You're right. New York, kind of the entertainment capital, definitely. Right. But in terms of the larger arenas, AWA, when they were in Canada, they hit Canada regularly. Winnipeg, big market. San Francisco, California was theirs too. So they did. Again, their territory was spread out, but they did have big houses, and they did very well filling them once upon a time too. But New York is New York. It's a separate thing altogether.
I don't think they would have had that train to put Hogan over like that, though. I think it just would have stayed in the territory, and that's it.
But even if he had become champion, you don't think Vince would have said, "Hey, whatever Vern's giving you, I'll double it." I mean, because keep in mind, I'm not sure what year it was, but I believe Vince offered Harley Race, I think, $250,000 to show up in the World Wrestling Federation.
Starcade 80.
This is when he was the NWA champion.
Yeah.
With the belt, and then he also supposedly offered. No, that was Vern. Vern offered Sheik $125,000
to break
Hogan's. No, but Vince offered Race that money. I guarantee you that he would, because he was buying everybody by then. He got all those guys from the AWA. He got Valentine and Piper from Mid Atlantic. He got Duggan from Mid South. I think he got Coco Beware from Memphis. So he was raiding all the territories, not just the AWA.
I just don't think Vern Gagne had that marketing train, that I'm trying to think of the word, that push to get him nationwide. Even though if they go to San Francisco and all that, I still think it just would have been a territorial thing. Because
he didn't have the business acumen.
When Hogan won the title and Hulkamania started, he was every state, every city. He was already Rocky III and all that. My gut is Vince had a meeting with Hogan. Here's what the X amount of money that you're going to be offered. You're going to make. Sign here now. We have to get this going. We have to get the title off the Sheik. All that stuff or whatever it was. Backlund's gone, because this was set up beforehand. Vince laid it out, and this is how it is. And I don't think Vern Gagne could have had that. A handshake. Think about it. It was a contract signing with Vince versus a handshake with Vern Gagne. What are you going to do in that situation? You know what I mean? Vern Gagne is living the old style where a handshake meant everything, and I got you, and that's it. You're going to wrestle for me. And I don't know if he got wind of that, because I don't know what the real story is with that the Night of Champions there in Minneapolis when Hogan won the title, and then all of a sudden it was reversed because he threw Bockwinkel over the top rope like 10 minutes prior,
Right.
which was a ridiculous rule in any wrestling town, but any organization. But what do you guys think of that? You think Vern might have had an inkling that Hogan was leaving?
I don't know that he had an inkling that he's leaving. I think he just had his own doubts about making Hogan champion, and he just left himself an out for that too. And I do think it ultimately was business. Again,
Sure.
Vern notorious for wanting a cut of everyone he's trained or given an opportunity to. He wanted it, I guess, in perpetuity. He was. I don't know what it was, 10% in perpetuity for the people he trained, or 20% for X number of years, and
that's all old
so
school.
forth.
That's all old school numbers, though. You know what I mean?
Oh, it is, and yeah, it is. But not too many people went for that.
Well, yeah, times are changing. It's not 1960 anymore. And we get some comments here. Maria Davis, I think Hogan would have stayed in the AWA. He would not have had the push to become the wrestling star he became. Similar to what I said.
Yeah.
Basically, doesn't have it in there. Loose Cannons in the house. Hey, welcome, Loose. AWA would have been strong until Hogan and Ventura and Heenan left too. But don't forget, they all left because they saw the greener pastures, before Hogan and all that stuff. It was kind of weird, though, seeing Ventura and Adonis showed up, all these AWA figures show up before Hogan. I found out in the wrestling magazines that all these guys came from the AWA. And then
Heenan, too, Bobby Heenan.
I even think in the AWA, Hogan and Andre had an arm wrestling match, right? Didn't they start a feud in the AWA with that years ago or something like that? There was an arm wrestling match.
Yes, there was. I remember seeing the black and white pictures in one of the magazines, and it might have been. I'm not sure if it was AWA or if it was maybe. I don't know if it was down south. Maybe it might have been. I'm not sure, but they did definitely have that.
They definitely had an arm wrestling thing. And what else we got here? A lot of comments coming in here. El Dirtbag, it was the Goonie song with the gas station. The Iron Sheik dressed as a pirate was great. Yep, I remember that. Johnny May Young. You guys remember that?
Yeah.
J.A. Will says Johnny May Young. Wow. And J. Will again says AWA would have went a while longer. See, that's just it. Everyone's kind of in agreement because of AWA's promotion. Hulkamania, obviously, with Vince went worldwide quickly. It would have died out, I think, in the AWA. It probably would have fizzled because the exposure wouldn't have been there for Hogan. So,
the AWA would never have become the WWF because Vern Gagne wasn't Vince McMahon. He didn't have that vision. Vince had the vision.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question, Benny. It's a great hypothetical. What if Hogan, kept the belt? You know what I mean? We can talk about that all night. We can talk about what if superstar Billy Graham kept the belt?
Yeah.
What interruption would happen there? Would there be no Bob Backlund? Would there be somebody else? Would Graham hold on to the title for 5 years? What do you think?
I don't think Graham would have lasted.
No.
You do, Phil?
I don't. I think the fans would have stuck with him. I just think he would have burned out. I don't think he could have sustained his lifestyle at that level for so long, He'd go into hiding from time to time to kind of recharge his batteries, but I don't know that he was built for that, a 5-year run, know.
I would have loved to seen him as a babyface champion though, and feuding with all the heels. That would have been great. Yeah,
I think Superstar would have been a champion not for 5 years. I would say a good 2.
Yeah,
years.
I think they would have got him to 1980, and then. Somebody else would have been coming in the wings or something like that. I wouldn't even know. Yeah, you probably would have saw a heel turn babyface with Graham. He was kind of popular anyways. Looking at the old videos, he was the man you love to hate, kind of, so to speak. He was always causing. You knew when superstar Billy Graham was coming to the ring. If you watch the old Madison Square Garden, Philadelphia Spectrum videos, when he came down the aisle in the ring, he caused a ruckus. People wanted to see him. And the Grand Wizard, obviously, Phil, you would know, and Benny, his physique was phenomenal.
Yeah.
He was the
charts charisma.
He was the Hulk Hogan before Hulk Hogan. I mean,
he had his own word, pandemonium. That word was just for him.
The man in the hour, too sweet to be sour. All that, he was the Muhammad Ali on the mic.
He was off the charts.
And I know
way ahead of his time.
I know Joe Myers said good topic to have on the show would be best talk-ups. Mic battles like The Rock and Hurricane Helms. That's a good one. And, of course, the infamous Jumpin' Jeff Farmer.
Yep.
We got to have Jumpin' Jeff Farmer on the show.
I don't like it when things aren't going my way.
Yep.
Jericho and The Rock had quite the battle. Remember when Y2J's debut?
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah, you got Cena Punk. You got Cena Rock.
Cena Punk.
Patera and Heenan from the Worcester Centrum in 1987. The great debate.
Yeah. That was great.
Oh, what was that? I don't remember that one.
That's when Heenan hurt his neck, when Patera beeled him across the ring. I know he wrapped the belt or something around his neck, but that was in Worcester.
Was that a face turn for
Patera?
Patera, yeah.
That's when he got out of jail.
Yeah.
Yes.
Classic. Billy Graham said on many occasions that Hulk Hogan stole his poses and gestures. Maria Davis said that. I agree with that only because Hulk Hogan has admitted that he grew up. Even Ric Flair mentioned it. That's who they wanted to personify. They wanted to put a little bit of superstar Billy Graham. That was the flair, not the Ric Flair, but the flair of the sport and the entertainment aspect. So yeah, I mean, Hulk Hogan did in a way copy Billy Graham, but he did his own shtick. In a way.
So did Jesse. Jesse copied.
Jesse, same thing. You know, these guys were big bodybuilders, and you know, unfortunately, we got to talk about the wrestling aspect between. I'll even mention Ventura and Hogan. Not the greatest technical wrestlers.
No.
You know what I mean, Phil? What do you think about that?
I wholeheartedly agree, but I will say this in regarding Hogan. His matches in Japan, I think, were a lot better because Hogan did have that ability to rise to the occasion, you know. So he was capable of performing some good work in there. It's just he didn't need to when he was champion here.
Yeah,
you know, he was working, you know, sometimes 2 shows a day, right? Occasionally 3 shows a day, traveling around. So he was a quick hit, 5 minutes, do his thing. Right. You know, kind of what Stu Hart called Ric Flair. He called him a routine man. You know, so Hogan had his routine, and you know what? It worked. It worked for a long time. So
they printed money for years.
Yeah.
No, I mean, don't get me wrong. Yeah, they put butts in seats and made a lot of money. But when you talk about the technical aspect of the sport,
right?
You think of a Bob Backlund. You think of you know. Who's some of the other greats?
But even Bruno
Sammartino could wrestle, right?
Bruno's matches, there wasn't a lot of like wrestling in them. I mean, it was, you know, most of the time
headlock punches and forearm smashes.
Bruno did a lot of stomping, a lot of punching, and because there was a revenge factor coming into the match because prior to the match, either Arnold Skolin got attacked, or you know, Danucci or his cousin Antonio Pugliese, you know, got attacked by that heel. So there was a buildup. So there was, you know, Bruno was out for this guy's blood. And yeah, Bruno was Pedro's same thing. Pedro was a brawler, really.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that has to do who they matched up against. I mean, Adrian Adonis was a great technical wrestler, and he pretty much out-wrestled Bob Backlund at Madison Square Garden. It was a great match if you ever get a chance to watch it.
Was that when he was still from Hell's Kitchen?
Yeah,
he was from New York City and all that. Yeah,
or the Bowery, maybe.
Yeah, it was
supposedly a legitimately tough guy too.
He was a tough guy. He could take a beating and all that stuff. But it all depends on who you're matched up against. When
you're right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Joe. You know, in regarding Bruno and who you're matched up with, I did not see this match, but Bruno and Pedro wrestled each other, didn't they?
Yeah, Chase Stadium.
Chase Stadium. They had a long bout, didn't they?
An hour and 15-minute drop.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would have been curious to see that match because that would not have been, I don't think, a punch stomp.
I think that was scientific.
I've seen that match. It was scientific. It was arm drags, arm bars,
hammer locks, all that good stuff.
It was a clean match. I think it went 20 minutes. No, it went an hour and change, right?
Yeah, and that's pretty amazing too. You know, and I bet they kept the fans' attention for all that time too.
So they did pretty good with that.
So you're right. It depends on the opponent, I think.
Right. I mean, when you see Bruno taking on Ivan Koloff, it is punches and kicks and stomps because that's what Ivan Koloff does. Sergeant Slaughter, he had some moves, but
Slaughter's a great worker, though. Again, with the right person, Slaughter could fly around and work really well.
I think Slaughter came into his own when he fought Pat Patterson, obviously the bloodbath.
Classic.
But he even got more over. I'm not talking over with the fans, even though he became a good guy. His boot camp matches with the Iron Sheik were phenomenal. I mean, he would take bumps. He would he would sacrifice his body in a way that nobody saw before.
Slaughter is a very tough guy in great condition. You know, Slaughter used to work on a roof. His dad had his own roofing company.
Yeah.
So anyone who does that, I can tell you, it's got to be made of something. And here's something that I brought up before, and I'm pretty sure this is true at least at one point.
Okay.
Iron Sheik and Slaughter were both trained by Vern Gagne, and both were from Minnesota, or at least Sheik emigrated to Minnesota, and Slaughter is from Minnesota. Anyway, I think for a little bit of time, the Iron Sheik worked with Sergeant Slaughter at his father's roofing company. So, you know, imagine going back in time and looking up on the roof and seeing two of the laborers being Sergeant Slaughter and the Iron Sheik. Imagine them getting into a fight up there.
Oh my God! Imagine they'd fall off the roof and be okay.
Amazing. You know, if you can trust each other on a roof, you can trust each other in a boot camp, I think, you know.
Like J.A. Wills going to the mailbag on this one. The best wrestling physiques of the 60s and 70s was Sailor Art Thomas. Earl Maynard, Atlas, Superstar, Ivan Putski, and Reggie Park.
I'll go with that. Yeah.
Tony Atlas was unbelievable. Big man. And I think somewhere in the chat, Monty and the Pharaoh was talking to him about they were trying to push they thought, hold on one second, if I can. J.A. Will had Tony Atlas had his head on in 1984. They stated they wanted to put him on top, and then Monty says that's a story. Not sure if it's true. Well, you think Tony Atlas would have been something in '84 if he wasn't, self-destructing? I don't know if he was self-destructing then, but I don't know.
That's really. It was a different time, and it could have been, but ultimately, I guess it had to do with his dependability.
Yeah.
But how about his tag team partner, who also had one of the best physiques, Rocky Johnson?
Yeah, and they were the first tag team champions. Yeah.
Great matches with Morocco too.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Hogan had about 3 moves, a leg drop, and that was one of his signature moves. Maria Davis obviously knows about Hogan. She says also that Bruno had 3 moves as well, and he wasn't a technical wrestler.
No,
Bruno Sammartino. So
there was no need for Bruno to be. It was based on emotion. It was that's what the people wanted to see. The people wanted to see him bust George Steele open. They didn't want to see him give him a top wrist lock.
Yeah. By WrestleMania 7, Loose Cannon said Slaughter was in horrible shape as WWF champ. He was gassed during his whole match with Hogan at WrestleMania 7. I agree with that. I think that was an experiment gone wrong, by the way, giving Slaughter the title during that, what was it, Desert Storm or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
That was they had to change the venue, right? Because of a bomb scare or a terrorist?
There's some debate whether it was that or whether it was ticket sales. It's a good story that it was that, but I'm not sure if it was really more box office than a box office bomb versus an actual bomb threat. I don't know.
Yeah, Jay Will says Rocky Johnson was a better athlete. Rocky was also a sparring partner for George Foreman. I think I remember reading that.
Yes. That is true.
That. Yep. That's good. And somebody said Jay Will, a roofer, is an industrial athlete.
I concur, J.A.
There you go. Yeah.
And Franco Colombo was a brick mason, and Franco was one of the strongest bodybuilders in the world. He could go into Venice Beach, jump over the fence, get on the bench with 500 pounds cold and do reps. Franco was pretty amazing.
Not a big guy either, right, Phil?
Franco, not a good guy?
No, not a tall guy. He was small.
No, 5'3" maybe. He was
5'3". Wow. And what, like maybe 200 pounds?
Yep. He won the Olympia in the under 200-pound class.
Wow.
Yeah, but he was
that's borderline midget wrestling.
Yeah, he was a little Sardinian monster. He was amazing.
Yeah. Loose Cannon says it was low ticket sales with the Slaughter Hogan WrestleMania.
Yeah, I echo that, Loose.
They barely filled the arena. So yeah. So moving on with Hogan real quickly, because I know we're getting shorter on time here. Obviously, mainstream Richard Belzer show. You talked about this. Phil? Why don't you describe this? What happened here?
Well, it was a pre-WrestleMania situation, I think, along the lines of the Dr. D. David Schultz, Mr. T. John Stossel situation.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Hogan was given any instruction or any prodding in advance, but I think he was out to kind of maybe show how they were real athletes. They were really capable of inflicting some damage, and to put Richard Belzer to sleep was a pretty amazing thing, on TV, no less. I don't recall if it was live. I did see it at least on tape, but
yeah, I did too,
yeah. But he basically put him in a front face lock or a headlock. What?
I know there was a lawsuit and everything, but do you think this was real? Do you think this was set up?
Oh, definitely. There was a little pool of blood under Richard anyway.
Oh, he definitely hurt himself.
Yeah.
Look how young he is. Jeez. And then he goes on for Law and Order, so you got to love that.
He's no longer with us, though. Richard Belzer.
No, yeah, he did pass away. That is correct.
Yeah, not too long ago, too. Oh,
Hulk Hogan, Johnny Carson. That was the big one.
The king of wrestling and the king of late night, man. Honest to God.
That's when you knew it was big time. You just knew something was going on. Now, I'm not sure. I might be wrong on this, but I do believe this is a Rocky III appearance.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he was with the WWF just yet. I know he was on Johnny Carson after he became champion, but I want to say this photo with his glasses and the way
you're right.
Because he would have had a Hulkamania shirt on. He probably would have been more glammed up.
Yep.
This looks like an appearance for the movie Rocky III.
This is pre-WWF.
Pre-WWF. You can just tell by the way he looks and all that. Obviously, he's bulked up pretty good, but he always wore the sunglasses with the AWA. Because obviously when you go now, that's the Hulkamania I remember.
Yeah.
Ripping the shirt off, all that stuff. That's a far cry from just wearing sunglasses and being modest.
Well, yeah. When he became champion, I think he was on Joan Rivers. And, Joan Rivers and Johnny Carson had a falling out. And part of that falling out meant that if you appear on Joan Rivers, you're not coming on Carson. So Hogan, I think, made the Joan Rivers appearance, so he wouldn't have gone back to Carson as champion, I don't think.
I think there was a further falling out too, because when Johnny Carson retired, Joan Rivers was slated to take that spot.
He put the kibosh on it, though. I think.
Yeah, he put the kibosh on it, and that was. I think. I want to say. I know she's no longer with us, but her daughter. There was a book written, and that was told that she was going to be the first female late night host after Carson, but it didn't happen. Obviously, it went to Leno and all that stuff. So, and then of course. Hulkamania, we probably would never have gotten that 93,000 people at the Pontiac Silverdome for WrestleMania 3. I mean, you tell me.
I'll tell you, man, to think that I was in an arena with those 4 screens, except the arena I was in was about a 10th or 1/9 the size of that place.
Yeah.
Worcester Centrum probably hosting or holding 12,000 capacity. Yeah. And we're looking at 93,000, which again is literally like 9 times the venue I went to. I couldn't even fathom being amongst, that sea of humanity, as Gorilla Monsoon would say. Yep. Unbelievable.
And my thing, now, Phil, you mentioned that you went to Worcester Centrum to watch that.
Yeah.
I got it on pay-per-view. I had a huge WrestleMania party. Pay-per-view was relatively new then. Pay-per-view came out. Closed circuit did stick around. Certain places had it. Like you can go to the Worcester Centrum. But back in Quincy, we had cable by then. And I had I think it was WrestleMania 2 that aired the first cable pay-per-view. Even though some arenas still did the closed circuit, the transfer was slow and steady going over to pay-per-view. But I remember I watched it on pay-per-view, and you watching that arena a few towns away.
Yeah,
that's how it was back then. Either you could get it on your cable TV or not.
Yeah,
you still had to pay. I think he paid like $25 back then, which was big money.
Probably,
yeah, because I know they went up to $50 and $60 later on.
Yeah,
and you paid it. That's the only way you could watch it. There was no internet back then.
No, And I actually think I watched WrestleMania 2 at home on 1 was at the arena, 3 was at the arena, 2 was at home. We We had a little silver socket. You buy it from the cable company. They'd give you the socket that you plug into the cable box.
You had to
watch the event, and then you give it back to them after.
We did it was a call-in thing for us.
Okay.
You call in.
Yes.
And you talk to a human being, and they would find your account and did something to your box so you can get it. They told you to turn to channel whatever, and it was a channel that was never on, and you go to it, and there it was.
There it was.
On.
The good old days, Joe and Benny, when you could call someone, you could call and actually get a human being on the phone.
A competent
Such memories.
Phone, yeah.
And then the old Gerald cable boxes, you've been able to take a beer can cap and slide it underneath to unscramble the bad channels. You know, if you wanted to watch the nudie channels and all that, you put it in there. And it worked for pay-per-views after a while. And I know this for a fact that I think it was the Tyson fight.
Yeah.
One of the early fights that they tricked everybody. And if they know, technology was advancing then, we're talking, I think, early 90s. And they would put the thing in there and it would register on the cable company. So they would know, and they put this fake advertisement. Oh, you want a t-shirt, a Mike Tyson t-shirt, give us your name and address. We'll mail you the t-shirt. And what happened is they ended up, instead of getting a t-shirt, they got a bill for pirating the pay-per-view. This is how they caught everybody. This is legitimately.
I remember hearing about that. Yeah.
They caught you stealing. It was called piracy back then. It was a new term. And you were, doing unauthorized things because those cable boxes, if you remember, we rented them, we leased them. It was property of cable TV / the FCC. Right. Anything, a 3-letter acronym now with the government is, taboo. So you messed with the FCC, they were coming for you. You know what I mean? So
it was like taking the tag off of the mattress, man. You never know what's going to happen. Yeah.
Let me see. The J.A. Will says the Pontiac Silverdome sold for like pennies on the dollar when they tore it down. Yeah, probably because nothing was happening there. El Dirtbag, a week after the Belzer concussion, Hulk and Mr. T hosted Saturday Night Live. That's correct. That was the night before WrestleMania.
You guys remember that?
I was shocked they did that. I was absolutely shocked they hosted the night. I figured they'd be because Saturday Night Live was live. It's 11:30 at night. That's kind of late for them to be up, don't you think? Because they have a big day tomorrow. They wrestled in the afternoon, don't forget. It wasn't a nighttime thing. It was 1 o'clock the next day. There was less than, so when they got through with the show, it was less than 12 hours. I was kind of shocked.
That was a great show, too.
It was a great show. Don't get me wrong. I think they wrestled somebody up front in the beginning. Somebody in the crowd took a bump or whatever.
And I mentioned before, the night before another WrestleMania down the road, I went to the one in Connecticut. It was 9 or 10, whatever it was, but it was the LT one. LT was out carousing the night before. I was in the very same bar as he was. I was 15 feet away from LT the night before. He wasn't home resting and drinking his protein shakes. He was out and about. Yeah.
I had the chance to go to WrestleMania. I think it was 14 at the what was called the Fleet Center in Boston.
Yeah,
and the big thing was Undertaker's entrance with the Broods. That was the first time the Broods showed up with the flaming things. And 2 days before, Shawn Michaels, Triple H did a publicity thing at City Hall Plaza. Do you remember?
I remember.
And somebody threw something at Shawn Michaels. They threw a bottle at him, hit him in the head.
Yeah.
He dropped the mic, went back in the limo, and Triple H had to talk to the crowd saying, you got to stop acting like that. You're blowing it for everybody else who wants to see everybody. And the end result was Shawn Michaels and Stone Cold, beating each other up and all that stuff. That was at City Hall Plaza. I think there were like 10,000 people at lunchtime at City Hall Plaza. It looked like a Celtics parade. That's how packed it was, because I went there on my lunch because I worked in Boston, and I couldn't even get near the place. I was way back, and I could just barely see what was going on. It was on the left side of City Hall Plaza, and the whole area, how you can walk through City Hall Plaza, was packed. 10,000 people.
And no duck boats.
And no duck boats. And don't forget, this internet was relatively new. This wasn't even announced until like a day or two before that they were going to do this.
Wow.
This was just a PR thing for WrestleMania, and it turned into this huge circus. And that was just amazing to me for that. I don't know how we got off topic on that.
No, man, it's awesome.
Anyways, obviously we know Hulk Hogan into the Hall of Fame. Obviously well deserved. I mean, if there's anybody that, AKA be that first ballot Hall of Famer, I mean, this guy would be it because without Hulkamania and all that thing, I don't think it'd be a Hall of Fame. What do you think, Benny?
No. I mean, he revolutionized wrestling. You got to give him credit for that, whether you like him or hate him. I mean,
And Loose Cannon, Monty, catch the great timeless Tony Storm. Her act is worth a watch. Well, Loose Cannon, if you go on Monty and the Pharaoh's page, my What a Day Wrestling Minute, ironically, yesterday was about timeless Tony Storm. Take a look at it. It's doing good, by the way, 100 and something views. So I must have hit something with that. So check it out, Loose Cannon. Timeless Tony Storm, the What a Day Wrestling Minute, exclusively on Monty and the Pharaoh's channel. That's a good thing. It's literally just a minute, folks. That's all it is. I try not to take up too many people's time like we're doing tonight. But I think we're all talked out, right? Hulkamania's here. I mean, do you think Hulkamania is still living on right now? Do you think?
I think it's immortal, just like not like the man, but the spirit that's within the man. I mean, talk about inspirational and getting a generation of kids to work out too. I mean, he really launched. I think he was in terms of his effects on fitness. I think he was a pioneer in many regards. And he's up there with Arnold and these other people. Even Jack LaLanne to some extent. All the vignettes, the TNT stuff, just all the promos, and just the whole act, man.
Benny,
inspired so many people.
Betty, what do you think?
I just think that it was, all the stars aligned. Vince bought WWF from his father. He got Hulk. He got all these other greats. I mean, it just everything came into place. Hulk was the right guy to lead wrestling into the national spotlight. No question about it. I don't think anybody, I mean, they could have gotten somebody else, but nobody would have had the impact that Hulk had, because let's face it, even when we saw him back in 1980, late 79, early 80, when Blassie was his manager, I think you might have said it, Joe, like we knew there was something special about this guy. We just knew.
Yeah. I mean, I obviously, I was 15 when he won. I was already 3 or 4 years into watching wrestling, and I witnessed a change. So, I think I was that genre. I think, Phil, you were that genre too.
I was.
They took you from the land of fat guys and all that stuff. I forget what they called them back then, but they were big burly guys to all of a sudden it's these mega I mean, Don Morocco's a perfect example. He was turning into he admitted on my podcast he was totally out of shape. He was on cocaine and all that stuff. But when Hogan came around and they saw the steroid era come in and all that stuff, Hogan was the original Rock, right?
Yep.
The Rock Morocco. So, I mean, he looks like he revolutionized the sport. Him and Vince. Vince had a vision. Hogan was the train for that vision. And it took them to heights that, nobody ever expected. I mean, if Vince really saw in the future that he was going to take over NWA and AWA within 20 years, you would have laughed your brains out. I mean, we all saw the stunt that he pulled, the Black Saturday by taking over TBS one night for a couple of months. Without Hogan, that stuff doesn't happen. I don't think, but definitely where we are today is a result of that. I know the sport is still changing because times are changing. Technology is changing. The audience is changing. Even back in the day when Hogan wrestled the main event, you still had those boring undercard matches. If you remember, it was like you just went there to see Hogan and that was it. There was no more great undercard where Backlund would be fighting somebody in a steel cage and you got Morocco Morales on the undercard, which basically stole the show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or a great tag team action, Tony Gurria and Rick Martel taking on the Samoans.
Yeah.
Or even the upset of Ivan Putski and Tito Santana over the Valiant brothers. That came out of nowhere.
Yep.
So, no longer is wrestling like that. Wrestling is action-packed from the moment you start watching it to the last. Even if you go to a wrestling show, it's action-packed.
There's no build-up.
There's no build-up.
And things don't mean much now. Yeah, there used to be so much meaning attached to everything you see. How can you forge a relationship with the, combatants if they never slow down,
Yeah.
And they all look alike. Many of them do, you know.
Loose Cannon just watched my What a Day Wrestling Minute. Chin up, tits out. Thanks, Luce. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. But yeah, I agree with what you guys are saying. I mean, it just, where the way the matches, there's no storylines. I get that, but it's more the storylines up. The greatest storyline for me that got me back really invested was the Bloodline, but it was more acting. You know what I mean? The story wasn't told in the ring. If they were in the ring, they were acting like, I'm talking like verbal acting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Michael Cole hit the nail on the head. If you watch Roman Reigns and Jey Uso, even with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, that whole Bloodline story, that was good acting. You could see the realism in that. Zayn and Owens getting personal about how they used to brawl each other and grew up together and wrestled together. That's real. Same with Roman Reigns. He's got that realness because you grew up with the Usos. They're cousins. They grew up together. They played football. So there's that chemistry. When you watched it, you didn't think you were watching wrestling for a moment. And then you throw a guy like Paul Heyman in there, who's just a masterpiece on the microphone. Boom. You struck gold. It's beautiful. The Bloodline was no doubt should have been up for an Academy Award if that was ever recognized. Because I know the storyline's still going, but that feud with Owens and Zayn and, I don't want to be your friend. Maybe I'll be your friend. And the stuff they did was just, it was mint. It was good stuff.
Personal issues are good box office, man. They've always been. And, and they did a great job at really breathing life into these personal issues. And with every good angle, there's more than a hint of truth and substance, behind it, really, Right.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. I think, right now wrestling is getting very popular again. And part of it is because of what's happening outside of the ring.
You're exactly right. Exactly right. Yes.
I question, I don't mean to switch gears again, but I question the timing of this lawsuit. We all heard about it with Vince McMahon 2 days before the Royal Rumble. Guess what that does? And Vince and how he is. Any press is good press.
Yeah.
And this is negative as hell press, but it's still press nonetheless because WWE is trending number one, even without wrestling being on. And now got Royal Rumble. I'm dying to see the numbers for that now. People are going to be talking. People are going to be watching. And I know Monty and the Pharaoh, I don't know if you guys are coming on, but we're doing a post Royal Rumble show.
Yes.
I'm going to be on that. I'm going to be on that show as well, and I'm going to be looking to the right because they have the press conference afterwards, the media, and Triple H when he sits down, somebody in that crowd is going to be asking him the number one question that's on everybody's mind about the lawsuit. Now, in typical WWE fashion, they are going to probably have to surprise the freaking hell out of us tomorrow night to offset this negativity that's going on. Whatever surprises they have in store now, probably going to change, and they're going to up it. And whether it's Sasha Banks coming back, whether it's I know Braun Strowman, all those guys, Brock Lesnar still really hasn't been. He's not named in the lawsuit, even though we kind of know who he is. I say he still appears. Why? Because everybody's expecting it and watching it and wanting it. You know what I mean? So, and my prediction for the Royal Rumble, I'm going to tell everybody out there, is it's going to be the first ever simultaneous win. It's going to be Cody Rhodes and CM Punk left in the ring last, and they're going to have to face each other, and they're going to be friends and all that, and they're going to beat the hell out of each other. But I think they're both going to fall over the top rope and land simultaneously on the floor, and we're going to have the first ever dual winners of the Royal Rumble, and that sets up a storyline because don't forget Seth Rollins is going to be out for a month or two. Whatever, he's not coming back pretty much till towards WrestleMania. So you got X amount of weeks to work this feud or figure it out, or a triple threat at Mania, or whatever the pay-per-view next is, that type of thing. What do you guys think of that real quick?
I tell you what, though. I'm sorry, Phil.
Go right ahead. Go ahead, Benny.
What I really liked on Raw, though, was the interaction between Gunther and Seth.
Oh, yeah.
I really liked that. You talk about felt legit. That felt real to me.
Yep, that's on the table, but I don't think it's on the table right now. I think because
no.
Seth Rollins is hurt, but that's definitely a possibility. I can see that. There's no question about it. That might have been the interim thing before WrestleMania for Seth Rollins, Because don't forget, when you win the Rumble, it's, they point at the sign, and then it's like, who are you going to face? Who are you going to fight? You know what I mean? Another thing, Phil, go ahead. I know you're going to say something.
Yeah, well, of course, now that The Rock has been given a chairmanship, or at least now he's a member of the board, he can actually legitimately make decisions. And of course, there have been rumblings, no pun intended, about The Rock looking at Roman Reigns' reign and lack of title defenses in the traditional 30-day window, and perhaps take some steps to strip him of the title, maybe put it up for grabs. So I don't know. I see The Rock maybe wielding some type of influence here and shaking things up in the title picture.
Yeah,
unexpectedly.
Real quickly, I think The Rock will show up tomorrow night. I think with all the publicity surrounding this lawsuit and everything, he has to make an appearance in some fashion to offset. I know it's making the news. It's on NBC News. It's on the news. It's all over the place. It's bad timing, so to speak. Slim Jim just pulled out as an advertiser. I'm sure one or two may follow after that. I'm not sure. We don't forget we are on a weekend here, so business is not as usual in the corporate world. So it's not like they can hold a board meeting and fire Vince and say that's that. What I have a feeling that the WWE is going to, whatever stops they were pulling out for us yesterday, is going to be upped now because of what happened with the lawsuit.
They had that faction damage control. I think, like you said, Joe, this is going to be real life damage control.
Yeah, real life. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see a star-studded WrestleMania. I'm not sure. I'm trying to think. I think Andrade will return. That's a
I could see that happening.
Yeah, I can see that. There's a lot of guys. Braun Strowman's ready to return. He can come back. There's a whole list of people that could do it. My only gut, I think the girls are going to steal the show tomorrow night, and I think Tiffany Stratton's going to be somebody to look for. They're grooming her to be the next Charlotte. Charlotte's out for X amount of time now. And we're talking 9 months, 8 months.
Yeah, long term.
She just had her surgery. I know she's rehabbing now, but Tiffany Stratton is someone to look for. Liv Morgan, Beth Phoenix, Nikita Lyons, Sonya Deville. All these names are coming out because they're ready to come back. So they've only announced X amount of people for the Rumble. So you have all these slots to fill. Now the WWE is going to have to get really creative and surprise us. And, what Triple H always says, suspend everybody's life for a while and focus on something positive. And hopefully tomorrow night they can get that done. So, all right.
The fans are the beneficiaries. That's a good thing, right?
Phil, any Royal Rumble predictions?
To quote Mr. T once again, pain.
Who's going to give the pain, though? That's what it is. Who's going to do that?
That's a good question. A lot of people think Bayley looks good in the women's front.
I think yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised there at all.
Yeah.
But then again, we're talking surprises too, and we certainly talk about Sasha Banks. But again,
Alexa
Camille is a favorite of mine. Would not be surprised.
Yep.
But it's really hush hush on her now. I wouldn't be surprised if she doesn't make an impact.
She's not signing with AEW?
I don't know.
I know she was in talks, but I'm telling you right now, the WWE is feeding these dirt sheets this stuff, and it reminds me of CM Punk at Survivor Series, where they were fed CM Punk's not going to be there, reliable sources. Now we get the Sasha Banks thing. Oh, she's in Boston. She's really not from Boston, folks.
Yeah.
She's not going to be there. The more they say this, I've seen Sasha Banks' name pop up more on the internet the last 3 days. And this is similar to CM Punk during Survivor Series. I think right now, Damage Control, I hate to say it, she's coming back. She's going to be there. That's going to be the shocker for the women's side. Whether she's number 30, whether she's number 1, 5, whatever, it's still going to be the big deal. Because I just thought of it now. Her and Bayley could be the last two people in the ring for the Royal Rumble. You know what I mean? That's a who's who right there. You got a CM Punk Cody Rhodes situation right there. Two real good friends. Whatever. It is what it is. It's going to be entertaining nonetheless.
I'm rooting for Roman Reigns, though. I will say that. I always have. So,
all right.
And I feel pretty good about him.
Yeah, I think he'll take it off. Another theory I had, I hate talking like this, but another theory I had was Solo Sikoa's the wild card here. I think he cost LA Knight the win against Roman Reigns. And then I think Nick Aldis is going to put him in the Rumble, and that's going to make a difference. Something's going to happen. He's going to do dual duty. But that all depends on what match I think the men's Royal Rumble match should be the main event. The Roman Reigns title match should be like right before that, because it's really about pointing to the sign and ending the show.
Yeah.
So the men's match will be last. So that gives leeway for LA Knight to, because AJ Styles and Randy Orton, they've already been there. I think it's LA Knight that's just another surprise entrant, because he got screwed out of the match of Solo Sikoa again. He goes to Nick Aldis and say, put me in, and he gets put in. That's my imagination running wild with that. So you never know.
Just as probable as any of the other scenarios, Joe. Just
Absolutely.
as probable.
Yep.
Benny, any predictions on your end?
I'm saying Punk. I just have this feeling Punk's going to win it.
Yeah. He will with Cody Rhodes, a simultaneous finish. You got to admit it's genius when you think about it. I mean, it's never happened. We can go back to the Hogan-Orndorff cage match at Saturday night's main event when they both landed at the same time. But, part of me thinks that was trickery television, because you had two different angles. They might have both landed at the same time. But, what do you think, Phil?
Yeah, I think that's true. But now, did Luger and Hart do the same thing before out of the ring?
Probably.
They might have done the same time touch, but I could see that happening again.
It's a bigger stage, so yeah.
Is Kofi Kingston in the Rumble?
Yes, I think he's an entrant. Yep.
Well, I'd love to see Kofi doing.
He'll do his thing. He'll do his thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Highlight.
Jump around.
I love seeing that. Very innovative, very original,
yeah,
supremely athletic, and very cool. So I hope we see.
I know Big E is not medically cleared yet, or he got good news on the wrestling front and all that stuff. I could see him making an appearance in a sorts where he runs out and lets Kofi on his shoulders and puts him back in the ring or something like that.
That'd be cool.
So you get a double. You get a double pop. Big E comes back for an appearance, and you got Kofi Kingston right in.
I'd like that. I pay to see that, man.
Yeah, I got to call the WWE. I think I should book this event tomorrow night. All right, guys, we're way over time. I want to thank you guys for coming on Wrestling Remembered. I know we got sidetracked at the end, but hey, that's what it's all about. Wrestling does that to a person, right?
Absolutely.
Yep. So, player Phil DeCesare, thank you so much for being on Wrestling Remembered. Don't forget, folks, hit that little subscribe button on the bottom there. Monty and the Pharaoh, what are we at? We're over 15,000 subscribers, and we're growing daily. We have tons of shows. We have True Crime coming up again, another Whitey Bulger reboot, right? We got that coming up.
Oh, looking forward to that. It's going to be a great show.
I'll produce that. We'll get some pictures and graphics up there for that, so that'll be good. And then, of course, we got the 30 on Thursday night, and, of course, Wrestling Remembered on Friday. And don't forget, folks, I know you're out there, we will be doing a post-Royal Rumble show on Monty and the Pharaoh. I think it looks like it's going to be a jam-packed screen. I think we're all jumping in on this one. Yep. So we're going to have about, 5, 6, probably 8 people on the panel for that. And I'll be watching the press conference off time, all right, to see if anything interesting comes out of that. But there's going to be a lot to talk about. Royal Rumble is a huge event tomorrow night, 8 o'clock on Peacock, 7 o'clock Central, all that stuff. So once again, thanks, guys, for being on. We're going to close out the show. Again, if subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Thanks for the comments. Loose Cannon, Beth Hopper, Maria Davis, Joe Myers.
Thank you, guys.
Everybody.
J.A. Will.
J.A. Will. Is it J. Will? J.A. Will? J.A. Will. He's got to put some dots in between that. J.A. Will. We're going to do that. But anyways, guys, you guys are great. We'll see you tomorrow night on the Post-Rumble show.
Love you guys.
And if you're watching on the replay, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys later.
Peace out.
What a day.
What a day.